So let's discuss one by one. So let us start with dynamic arrays.
Sure.
And can you explain with simple example dynamic arrays कैसे use कर सकते हैं?
Sure. So let's move to the screen. So this is the example I was talking about. So these are the tax collections of Government of India, and these are their percentage contribution. So we want to do a simple percentage analysis. Like usually people feel that income tax, there are only 2% people who pay income tax in India or tax in India. But that I feel is kind of a myth, because everyone pays GST and GST collections are more than income tax. So let's try to simply understand this particular concept through data. So I want to do a simple percentage analysis. So what I would do is I would do this corporation tax amount divided by the total. Correct? So this would be my simple formula. Now, if I just drag and drag this formula down, I'll find an error. Why? Because I missed one very important concept which we use in Excel, which is anchoring or cell referencing or using dollar signs. So traditionally, people would freeze this with a dollar sign and drag this formula, and they would do a total.
How did you freeze? Which shortcut key did you use there?
Yeah. So to freeze the cell in Excel, there is a keyboard shortcut called as F4.
Okay.
So if you press F4 once, you get a double dollar. F4 again, you get you freeze the row reference, then the column reference, and it goes away. So F4 is the keyboard shortcut. If you are using a laptop, then you might have to press the function key and F4.
Okay.
So you drag this. You have to drag the formula. You can drag it with the keyboard shortcut Control D, D for down. And then let's say you want to take a total so that you have the sanctity of the data. So to take a total, there is another shortcut which is Alt equal to. So press Alt equal to and you get the keyboard shortcut. So now this is the traditional way of doing analysis in data using dollar signs.
Just one question here. What is the difference if the dollar is before B and if the dollar is after B? So how do you interpret that?
Yeah. So let's try to take that example. So यहाँ पे तो मैंने पूरा ही freeze कर दिया. So now let's move to this particular example where this particular question which you have asked is more relevant. So let's say these are my parts of computer which I want to purchase. These are their USD prices and these are the FX conversion rates. Correct? Dollar is at 90, but let's good old days when it was 80. So here what I want to do is I want to multiply the dollar rate into the INR currency conversion rate. So I do this. Now I cannot drag this formula down. If I drag it down or if I drag it to the right, यहाँ पे everywhere I'm getting a wrong answer, right? Because it should refer 4 here, but it is referring a blank cell here. Correct? Now here it should refer 20, but it is referring the previous cell. So here what I want to do. So as you rightly asked in the last point, that here we want to freeze the column C. So therefore what I do, I can go to the formula bar here and I can press Shift 4 also to add $1. So now I have frozen column C. Now I don't want to freeze any row here because I want to keep the row dynamic. So I just copy paste this formula down and left. So now you can see I'm getting the correct answer for the first row at least. But again, if you see here, I'm getting a wrong answer. So what mistake I did was in the second cell, I need to freeze the row here. So यहाँ पे मैं $sign before row डालूंगा. So आपका जो question था, so जहां पे मुझे कॉलम फ्रीज करना है तो मैं वो कॉलम के पहले डालूंगा, जहां पे रो फ्रीज करना है वहां पे रो के पहले डालूंगा, अगर दोनों फ्रीज करना है तो दोनों जगह पे डाल दूंगा. सो इन द प्रीवियस एग्जांपल कमिंग बैक टू हियर मुझे कुछ फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता था बिकॉज टोटल वाज वन एंड द सेम. सो मैंने पूरा ही फ्रीज कर दिया. सो आई फ्रीज दिस, आई ड्रैग्ड इट डाउन. सो नाउ लेट्स ट्राई दिस फॉर्मूला. सो आई एडेड अ $sign हियर. लेट मी जस्ट जूम इन अ बिट and I can copy paste this formula. So you navigate Control Shift down, Control Shift right, and you paste the values. Now you can see our currency conversion is done properly. But now this is the old school way of working in Excel. Now there is some new function in Excel which can help us do this. So let's try to understand that how I would do this example in a new style. So what I would do is that I would select this entire array and I would divide it by this total. So earlier we used to refer one single cell in Excel, but now I can reference an entire array. So I refer this array and I just have to press enter and you can see I get all my values. So can you see this thin blue line outside my data set?
Yeah.
This thin blue line is called as a dynamic array. So I'll talk more about dynamic array. So before this, let's try to solve this case study also. So whenever I teach, like, most of the students are कि सर यार ये $sign बहुत complex है. So, हमें समझ नहीं आ रहा है, इधर डालू, बहुत confusion हो जाता है. So what should we do? So again, this simple case study, what I have to simply do is that I have to multiply one array. I select this array and I chose this second array and I hit enter. Now you can see that entire answers are populated. And again, you can see this thin blue line outside my data, which is called as a dynamic array. So this is the new feature in Excel. मैं थोड़ा डायनेमिक अरे का बिहाइंड द सीन कैलकुलेशन भी बता देता हूँ. Before that, let me give you a nightmare. Of course, for you it would not be a nightmare, but for other people it must be. So yeah. So आपको याद है ये स्कूल में we used to solve this matrix multiplication.
करेक्ट करेक्ट.
So जब हम लोग स्कूल में करते थे, हम लोग को लगता था यार ये मतलब क्या बेकार चीज पढ़ा रहे, इतना रोज ऐड करो, ये ऐड करो, all these things. You always felt कि यार this is so unnecessary, boring, right? And personally, I'll be this is a very big podcast, but I would like to admit that I never liked this topic, and I hated my school days, to learn this until I started learning Excel, and I tried to understand कि ऐसे क्यों होता है, like how this dynamic arrays work. So there is another function in Excel which is called as matrix multiplication. So it is MMULT. Right? So one small trick also for people, like let's say if you want to know about any function, so you type a function name, then you hit tab key, and then you press Control A for Apple, and then this dialog box will pop up, and then help on this function will come. Right? So just click help on this function, and you will land to this page which is called as support.office.com. Now support.office.com is nothing but the official support page of Microsoft. So as I told you, Excel is not a correct word we should use. We should say that we are working on spreadsheet, because Excel तो एक private product का नाम है. It's a label given by Microsoft. उसका पहले नाम Multiplan था. So Excel is a product from Microsoft. Microsoft, I think it's what, $2-3 trillion company, and they earn like billions of dollars to their revenue. So the support page of Microsoft is going to be the most authentic page to learn anything. So as you can see, यहाँ पे MMULT function है. So we can learn and read about the MMULT function directly from the Microsoft support page. इसके पहले we discuss the if function. So मुझे if function के बारे में पढ़ना है, तो यार write if tab Control A, I go to help on this function, and now देखो if function के बारे में मैं कुछ पढ़ सकता हूँ. Microsoft has given a video also. So I mean, this is not a good trick to share because it's killing my business, but still, like, I want the subscribers of this channel to have the most authenticate knowledge to learn Excel. So here you can learn from the Microsoft support page directly. So as I was talking about the matrix multiplication, so let's try to understand how matrices work. So see, this is the first array which we are trying to multiply, which I will highlight in yellow. So इस array के dimensions क्या है? This is an 8 rows है इसमें. Let me write it here. So this has 8 rows into one column. Correct? This is my first array, and this second array is my
one row into three
columns. Correct? So one row into 3 columns. So now if you remember the dot product rule, this 1 will get cancelled, and my final output would be 8 row into 3 columns. Right? This is what we had learnt in our matrices days.
Yeah, like I don't remember exactly, but yeah. So क्या था इसमें? 1 will get cancelled.
So this will get cancelled, and the final, when you multiply 2 matrices, your final output would be 8 rows into 3 columns. So this same case study, if I don't like $sign, I can do with the help of MMULT function, where I use the concept of matrix multiplication. So I choose one array, and I choose second array, and just a minute. So I choose this one array, and I choose this second array, and you can see I get this answer. So I use the concept of matrix multiplication, which we have learned in our school days, to solve like a real life business problem. So that's why maths is very important. So although even like when we rotate an image in our phone, right? So image is what? It's nothing but a small pixel. So that pixel has to move in the logic of matrices so that that image gets rotated. So that is how the ethos of this dynamic arrays as a concept in Excel, it will help you a lot if you understand matrices better. So it uses some concepts through matrices. It has its own computations logic, but that's how maths is useful like in our day-to-day life, and that's why it's being taught in the school. So this is like my most favorite feature in Excel, which is the concept of arrays in Excel.
Got it. And इसमें like MMULT function which was there, तो arrays का जो पूरा concept है, the formula that you use for arrays also, it is basically like the main root or maybe the main inference is from the MMULT function only, right? Arrays, like they have taken inspiration from this function is what I'm trying to understand, right?
Yeah. So मतलब जो ethos है Excel का arrays का, it's somewhat based on matrix multiplication only. And of course you can either use the MMULT function or you can directly multiply an array by array. So it's not exactly always matrix logics which works in Microsoft. There are some other rules also which are being followed, which we can discuss during the podcast.
Okay.
But just to give a perspective on how array works and how to think array based, so we can start with learning matrices, like revisit our school books, and that will give us a very good strong foundation to understand this concept of dynamic arrays.
And this is also applicable if there are let's say more than one rows and more than one column.
Yes, we can do multiplication for n number of arrays. That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, got it. Interesting. Cool. If you learned something new from this video, do share it with your friends and subscribe to this channel so that we can bring you the best content possible. Also, if you want to watch this entire episode, click on the link in the description box and you can go to Kushal Lodha YouTube channel and watch the entire podcast episode. Thank you so much for watching this and have an amazing day.